In the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful. Welcome to your show, Islam is Beautiful TV show. Did I just say you say Islam is beautiful? That is what I'm talking about. This is the show that will unveil the beauty of Islam. This is the show that will celebrate the vivacity of Islam. Today we have a very, very fascinating topic for us, and it shall center on the true meaning of jihad. And I'm not going to do it alone. I've got intelligent and fabulous young people in the house to elucidate the topic. I have on my left-hand side, and of course I have Sister and I remain Yusuf Jimo Aweda. It amazes me today when people talk about jihad, and they give us the dictionary meaning by saying that jihad is in an holy war. And I think it's important for us to define what jihad is not before we begin to talk about the true meaning of jihad. We need to clarify for people that connote massacre. How can it be holy? Islam strictly condemns that. What Islam says is that jihad is striving in the cause of Allah. I mean, you may have a
of course, I believe that jihad is derived from the Arabic word jahada, which means striving. So jihad technically means to strive in the cause of Allah. It doesn't mean terrorism, neither does it mean brutality, but jihad is striving in the cause of Allah.
Okay, you're actually saying that jihad is not bombing. Jihad is not throwing bombs on innocent people.
Yes,
jihad doesn't mean hijacking a plane. Jihad doesn't mean killing somebody because the person is not a Muslim. Jihad doesn't mean you throwing bombs on religious houses of other believers because they're not Muslims. That's not the definition of jihad. I'm sure my sisters in the house have got a genuine definition of jihad.
Yeah, I think jihad doesn't mean you forcing somebody to accept Islam. That if somebody is not accepting Islam, you have to fight the person because he's not accepting Islam. And it doesn't mean, because they say there is no compulsion in religion, like Quran 15.
Exactly.
So in Surah Al-Kafir, to you be a religion and to me be a religion. So it doesn't mean you forcing another person to accept religion of Islam or fighting them because they're not accepting the religion of Islam.
I think I would like to take it up from where she stopped.
Okay.
That, Islam is a religion of peace.
Definitely.
And we should try as much as possible to always emphasize that whatever it is that we do in Islam is about seeking peace, is about creating an atmosphere of peace. So we should make sure that in as much as we want to make our audience know that jihad means striving in the cause of Allah, it is also necessary that they have at the back of their mind that Islam is not that religion that is associated with the sword.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that everything about jihad is related to killing
or physical disposition or
and all of that.
Of course, there is a clause in that definition of jihad.
Okay.
And that's the fact that before you can say that one is practicing, jihad, one must have two things.
Okay.
The first is the belief in Allah,
okay,
and second in the following of the injunction of Prophet Muhammad.
Okay.
This arose as a result of an hadith of Prophet Muhammad, whereby a companion came to Prophet Muhammad to ask him that what is the best thing I can do to earn Allah's pleasure. The Prophet told the companion that go by the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, what next? He said, go by the commandment of his prophet. And the companion said, what next after that? He said, jihad. So before you can do jihad, let us go by the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his prophet. So without that, you are not performing jihad.
Okay, like you rightly observed, I think that jihad is from the word jahad, which means striving the cause of Allah.
Yeah,
of course, I do know that there are different kinds of jihad, different types of jihad. There is a most superior one, which is the jihad in nafs,
of course,
fighting your soul. Of course, I think we can actually explain that simply by saying that if Allah says you shouldn't commit adultery, and of course we know there are a lot of pressures in committing adultery, fornication, and you fight your soul not to do that, you have done jihad in nafs. That is the jihad, fighting your soul to leave something wrong, to doing something that is good.
Of course, but there is a particular hadith that says that كل بني آدم خطاء وخير الخطائين التوابون. That very all children of Adam are sinners. Okay. So our soul is attached to sins. You are bound to commit several sins.
Okay.
But the best of the sinners is he who go on tawbah, who seek repentance. What I'm drawing our attention to is the fact that our soul is bound to commit sin.
Okay.
So our ability to control our soul from this acts of committing sin is what we call jihad.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
I think at this point I would like to say that the objective of Islam is to abolish the lordship of man over man.
Okay.
And I think before we can engage in jihad, we should understand the concept of the 5 pillars of Islam.
Okay.
Before you can actually engage in jihad, you should also understand the 5 pillars of Islam, which is the iman, the salat, the fasting,
The
the
zakat.
zakat and the hajj. When you fully understand those concepts, that is when we can actually say you're going to engage in jihad, because jihad encompasses the 5 pillars of Islam. So your full understanding of those 5 pillars of Islam is very compulsory and necessary for you to participate in jihad.
Yeah, but I was mentioning the types of jihad we have the other time. I think we're having 2 major types of jihad. The first type of jihad is the jihad nafs, the one we explained earlier on,
which is the most superior.
Of course, the best said that's the best of all jihad.
Jihad
of all jihad. Jihad al-Akbar, the biggest of all. That's jihad al-nafs. What is the second type of jihad is jihad fi sabilillah. And that one encompasses a lot of things, which includes this, delivering of
the clarification making for people
course,
now is
the
jihad.
clarification we're making now is jihad. In fact, the Prophet said in an hadith that a Muslim who fasts, just observance of just one fast, would enter Al-Jannah.
Interesting.
So he had it. That it was reported by Bukhari and Muslim. That a Muslim, just a Muslim, that observe one fast will enter paradise. So observing fast is an act of jihad. You are striving to the cause of Allah. And that falls under jihad fi sabilillah. This we are doing now. We are passing the message of Allah. We are also doing jihad. And it also falls under jihad fi sabilillah.
Do you know that you just mentioned something very, very interesting? There are so many people actually practice jihad without them knowing. If you are a politician and you don't embezzle money, you don't steal the nation's money, and you control yourself not to do that, and you do what you're meant to do as an office holder, it means you're practicing jihad. Another similitude of that is if you're a student and your colleagues are taking examination chips into the examination hall, and you took your time to read your books and you abstain from all those horrendous things, you're actually doing jihad.
That's why I love one of the advice we're given in Surah Luqman by Luqman to his son. He said, Ya bunayya la tushrikullah inna shirka la zulmun azim. Ya bunayya aqim as-salat wa'mur bil ma'ruf wa tanhaw 'anil munkar. And that's the basis of our jihad. That, oh son, aqim as-salat, observe your prayer, wa'mur bil ma'ruf, command good, wa tanhaw 'anil munkar, and forbid evil. So if you command good and you forbid evil, you are practicing jihad.
Another thing, sometimes people usually associate jihad with your ability to show superiority, with form of terrorism. Do you remember the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that said, when he was speaking to his companions and he asked them, he said, do you know who is the strongest amongst you? And the companions felt that the one who is able to engage his other brother, in a duel, or somebody who is able to defend. And Prophet ﷺ said, no, it is the person who is able to control his anger. So it means that whatever act that you do to end the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is regarded as jihad.
In that line, there is this hadith too, that the Prophet said that 2 eyes would never smell air. 2 eyes. You can see the analogy there. We never smell air. 2 eyes that smell air. So the 2 eyes, the first eye is the eye of he who cries because of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. While the second eye is the eye who waits at midnight to watch over the security of his fellow brothers. So these 2 acts are act of worship, that jihad.
Do you know, I need to qualify your assertion, very, very brilliant assertion, that from the history, we need to say this because people think that jihad is when you force people to accept Islam. And you judge Islam by the revelation of the Quran and by the Sunnah of Prophet, peace be upon him. I can remember that I read the story, during the migration of Muslims from Medina to Mecca, where the Muslims are turned into, very, very devastating. Yeah, from Medina. They're coming from Medina to exactly. And they were like battalions of soldiers. They had the power and the strength to cut their pound of flesh from the Quraysh who had tortured them for long. When they got to Mecca, the Quraysh were held in such, very, very demanding position. They were so afraid that Muslims would kill them. So they asked Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him, we know that you are a kind man and you are a son of kind person, that you will show us mercy today. Prophet said that you pardon. Now where I'm going to now is this. There was another person who was a Quraysh person who actually felt that he may not receive the mercy of Prophet peace be upon him because he actually gone beyond the normal measure. He couldn't comprehend with the way he had tortured the Muslim. He thought that even if Prophet would pardon people that he would dare not pardon him. So he fled to somewhere else. And some people came to the Prophet that to intercede on his behalf. So Prophet asked some people to guide him back to Mecca. And when he came to Mecca, he said to the Prophet, can you give me 2 months for me to think about Islam? Prophet said, no problem, I want to give you 4 months.
How merciful.
If Islam was truly the religion of compulsion, he would have said, I'm giving you 2 months so that you accept Islam. But give him his time. You should have a very, very cool atmosphere to think about it. You request for 2 months, but I'm giving you 4 months. You know, that is the jihad. You don't force people to accept Islam, and you don't kill people because they're not Muslims. I think that gives us a very, very
we need to really simplify it so that people will know that even the attempts for you to familiarize yourself with your neighbors,
exactly.
You know, smile with them,
yeah.
Give them things when they need it, be concerned about their affairs. Even a father, when he tries to discharge his duties, his responsibilities as the head of the family, he's also striving to earn, you know, the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And such little things, such little acts, yeah. Could be regarded as, you know, jihad. It doesn't mean that until you find yourself on the battlefield, you know, trying to fight somebody because he has refused to do what you want, or he's, you know, speaking against what you support. It doesn't, that is not when you feel that, okay, that person is a mujahid, you know. So little things like that are things that will make you see somebody and say, this person is actually striving in the cause.
Of course, there is this hadith that says that the believer who dies on the war front or the battlefield will definitely enter paradise. It's a shaheed. It's a shaheed. Yeah. Exactly. But there is misconception about this. Exactly. And that's the fact that we must explain to people outside there that this Islam is not a religion of brutality. It's a religion of compulsion. Okay. In Islam, we are not meant to fight. We are not meant to foment trouble. We are not meant to call for war, call for battle. Okay. But in Islam, when we are fought, we are
meant to defend ourselves.
Meant to defend ourselves.
Exactly. I think a similitude of that is this. We need to clarify for people.
Yeah.
And this is an interface that we have to implore our viewers to listen attentively, because this aspect of jihad is the most misunderstood part of jihad, and that is the jihad of the sword. We need to clarify that a similitude of that is when you have a military defense in a nation. Every nation should have that to protect its people. Because if you don't have that, you are not a genuine nation. So Islam wants us to protect ourselves. And it is the lesser part of jihad. Jihad that use sword, whereby you use the physical means to protect yourself. It only occurs in 2 conditions. The first one is in the process of defense. You defend your country, just like we have the military defend, and of course you also use the jihad of the sword when you want to abolish evil acts. Just like, you know, we don't have, let me just quickly strike this, if you don't have a kind of a system that will curb, stealing, that will curb armed robbery, you know, that will curb corruption, you just say you guys shouldn't steal. People will still steal, but if there's a physical measure to stealing, that if you steal, we're going to do this for you.
I was fighting the Battle of Kandak. That's the Battle of Trench.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the Muslims were attacked by the Kuffar.
They were surrounded.
They were surrounded.
Exactly.
So it was this companion called Salman al-Farisi that put opinion that, oh Prophet of Allah, in Persia, we do dig trench in cases whereby you have been attacked by enemies. And Prophet Sam took to their advice, they dig trench around Medina then, and that was how they conquered.
That's a form of defense.
A form of defense. They never fought.
You know, I think another way we can
defended
actually
themselves.
participate in jihad is enjoying good and forbid bad.
Oh, interesting.
When we enjoy good and we forbid bad, we are actually engaging in jihad. Like when you see someone that, okay, this person is actually engaging in what is not good, probably what Allah is going against, or is going against the injunction of Allah, probably like stealing, lying, or an oppressor, somebody that is oppressing somebody else. You can, and we can do this in 3 ways. We can actually correct person with 3 ways. The first one is doing it with action, saying, okay, this thing you are doing, it is not good, and you correct the person. The second one is when you do it with your hand, like action, you take with the action, like, okay, this thing, probably the action can be in form of writing, like condemning corruption. You can actually write a book on it, or preach against it. Yeah, or even cheat against that. You don't do corruption, you don't engage in corruption or any atrocity, probably like prostitution, adultery. And the third one is condemning it within your own heart, your soul.
Yeah, I think
that is the weakest.
I think that the assertion of Sister Ukoya goes in line with one of the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It says that "Mara aminkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi, fa in lam yastati fa bilisanihi, fa in lam yastati fa biqalbihi." That's
knowledge. As students, if you engage in academic research, be it the field of medicine, literature, history, or engineering, and you could make a success out of it, that is also a form of jihad. You know, so it is important for us to understand the concept of jihad.
So it doesn't mean that until you find yourself on the battlefield, or until you reach a particular age before you can.
Misconception.
Okay, we want to thank our viewers. I implore you to join our Facebook page if you want to advance discussion with us. Islam is Beautiful TV show on the Facebook, and we also want to appreciate Nasita. Implore you that jihad is not about violence, it's not about terrorism. As a Muslim, you have to exude the beauty of Islam. You have to exude confidence, and you have to let the world know that Islam is indeed the religion of tranquility. Islam is indeed beautiful.
Beautiful.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.